Welcome to the KMBest podcast with Gerry Thompson. We're going to be taking a look at all of the upcoming cards from the Captain America Brave New World season, and they are some very interesting cards. Now, due to technical issues, I actually cannot use my computer in order to look these cards up, which means that Gerry is going to have to be the one who is responsible for the actual naming of these cards, describing them, any errata, any actual looking up we have to do. Also, full disclosure, I didn't tell him that before right now, so any reaction you're seeing from him is you get to see him learn this live. Anyway, let's get started talking about the Captain America Brave New World season headliner. I know most of these cards I think by heart, but we'll see if I actually get any of them wrong. This is of course Sam Wilson, Captain America. He is a 2/3 with an ability that starts at the beginning of the game, creating Cap's Shield. Cap's Shield costs 1. And if Sam Wilson is on the board, it can move to Sam Wilson or Captain America, and in so doing, give them +2 power. This is an ongoing ability as well that says it cannot be destroyed. Is that correct?
Where do I go to look this up? What is the cleanest way to do that?
Snap.fan is usually what I use. That's incredible. I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. The point is, it's a Captain... Yeah.
That's where I am, but where do I go?
You just search the name of the card.
Yeah, I wanted there to be a thing that was like, here are all the cards in the season, instead of me
that's
searching
under their
individually.
schedule tab, but they never actually have their schedule tab like set up such that you see the season pass card alongside the other cards in the season. For reasons unknown to me entirely, their schedule tab only talks about the cash cards. So if there's like a card coming out that's like in an event or on a season pass, it never gets included.
This can't be destroyed. Give your Cap +2 power when this moves to Cap's location. Yep.
And then Sam Wilson is the thing that lets it move.
Correct.
Okay, so that's like a wide variety of abilities split up in weird ways, but there are two things that really stand out to me about this card. Number one is it's a free discount on Mockingbird. And number two is it is a great way to prevent your stuff from getting Red Guardianed. And I guess a couple more things that I'm just going to keep listing. I said it was two things. It's more than that. Number three, this is a Cull Obsidian guarantee. There's basically no way to get rid of this guy. You will be able to play Cull Obsidian on him.
Did not think about that, but Cull Obsidian has not exactly been top of mind.
I mean, he came right back into mind just this week, but I've been thinking about some Cull Obsidian. I have been.
Let's be real. Was Surtur the best home for Ares?
Probably, but like, I don't know. It kind of depends on how you define best. Like, what do you mean by best? Is it like the best deck with Ares in it? I doubt that. Is it the deck that benefited the most from Ares? Maybe.
Yeah. I was going by the former, whereas the latter is almost certainly true.
Yeah. And I actually think Surtur is like a pretty relevant deck right now, such that like I do think that this constitutes an upgrade for it, in the sense of you don't have to run a bunch of garbagey 1-drops now. Like, you have to run even less garbagey 1-drops to be a Surtur deck than you did previously. Like, the cost of being a Surtur deck is getting lower and lower. We already have Ares, who doesn't require anything other than big guys in your deck to be a proc on Surtur and Scar. Now we're going to have a Cull Obsidian that, along with Sam Wilson, can go in any deck. So the package gets a little bit smaller and more compact. And I think that could be a reasonable thing that Sam Wilson does. And in addition to that, I think that there are some, potential interesting implications as well with protecting your stuff from Red Guardian and discounting Mockingbird. And those are the things that I think of when I see this card. And that's not even getting into the stuff that it's intended to do, which is throw its shield back and forth in your Spectrum Captain America deck.
Yeah, I'm still not super excited about Spectrum, period.
Sure.
But maybe. We'll see. I don't know. I am more so looking at Sam Wilson as more of like a standalone stuff for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, for sure. Like, Mockingbird probably being the biggest one for me, I guess, just because it's pretty easy to make that card strong, right?
Yeah.
But the other stuff, it's just like Cull Obsidian, and not super excited about it. Having Spectrum in my deck, not super excited, but yeah, we'll see.
What do we think the cost is to running Sam Wilson? Because there is definitely a cost of like you are putting a 1-1 on the board that kind of sucks. But he goes out of his way to mitigate that by allowing you to move that 1-1 around if you draw him.
Yeah, and I mean, also he gets bigger, right? So like, if you draw him early enough, I think that he ends up being quite good.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, there are certainly diminishing returns on a lot of the 2 cost cards. It's just like how many of them are actually like very strong when you draw or play them late game. So like, I'm not really holding that against Sam too much, but I think that if there are synergies in your deck that you can utilize, then yeah, Sam seems pretty good. But if you're just like, oh, I'm gonna play Sam because it's good, or because I have Spectrum and I'm trying to make that work, it's like, well, I'm not sure that you'll be super pleased by that unless the deck maybe gets a little bit more support. But yeah, Mockingbird stuff, I'm down.
Yeah. Knock-on effects from Sam Wilson. I can think of a couple decks that stand out as like I would like to try him here that are probably a little bit off the beaten path. It's not just like, oh, I'm gonna go play Spectrum Captain America. I've been playing a little bit of a Scream Surtur deck, and I think he makes a ton of sense in there with like Craven the Hunter, because Craven the Hunter is basically budget Captain America. You just have Sam and you have Craven, and it's the same sort of I'm gonna throw them back and forth kind of thing. And
Yep.
that deck is currently playing a Crossbones, but with this card in it, can play a Cull Obsidian instead. And I think that that is a meaningful upgrade there. I don't know if that deck's going to like be a massive breakout star, but it's definitely like the kind of thing that benefits from multiple aspects of Sam Wilson here. Being a Craven deck that also plays Cull Obsidian, it's kind of a specific thing to do. Maybe something along the lines of Thanos, right? Like we have a Thanos deck that wants to play Mockingbird. It could want to play Cull Obsidian. You could even do like Spectrum ongoing Thanos type stuff. I don't exactly know, but Thanos is very often like a 5/10. You play a 4/10 Cull, suddenly your Scar is very cheap. Maybe Thaddius Ross, we're going to talk about him in a little bit, goes in that deck kind of thing. Gets your Scar out of the deck. There's not nothing there, I think.
No, but I will point out that this is one of the instances where like the board slots
Mm-hmm.
are at a premium, right?
Yeah.
And Thanos, I like maybe you can do like the misery sort of version of that thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that could certainly help mitigate that. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you're focusing a lot on 9 and 10 power things, then maybe that's not that big of a deal. Just, don't play alongside things like Kate Bishop or whatever.
Yeah, there's like a weird tension because like you want to play this for your Mockingbird and then you want to play a bunch of other small garbagey stuff for your Mockingbird and then you're 100% out of room to do anything with your Mockingbird that is actually good. And there's some like, okay, I don't know if that's a real cost or one that is like we're effectively getting unnerfed Mockingbird again, right? It's obvious to think about Thanos, but like that is still a cost in board space that I think is slightly more real than people expect. So I'm hopeful for like specifically the Craven Cull type stuff because I feel like that's really using all the parts of the Buffalo, so to speak. But a lot of that's like, is there a version of a Craven deck that wants to be a Mockingbird deck too? And I don't think so. Like, is there a version of a
Yeah.
Mockingbird deck that wants to be a Cull deck? God, if only she had one more power, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess it's interesting because I was thinking about the move stuff that you were talking about where okay, like Craven is a functional second Sam, but you still need to draw Sam in
You
order for that
do.
to matter.
Yes.
And then at that point, like your Sam is also getting pretty big,
Yeah.
right? So you do sort of like pop off in that moment, I guess, if you are able to curve them into each other. RIP to the move priority stuff. But
I'm talking like a Scream deck, right?
no,
Where
I know, I
okay.
know. Yeah, it's just like the shield by itself doesn't do anything to help Craven unless you actually have Sam, and then at that
Yes.
point, yeah,
Well,
you still already have like a 2/9 potentially.
yes. Where I was going with that was I already am running Craven and I could swap out a Crossbones for a Cull, which means I would be benefiting at both ends here. Is sort of my thought process there.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to do that for
Yeah.
sure. Just because of like, I mean, the Call Obsidian upgrade I think is pretty big, and if you have the slot, I mean, I like the Scream decks that are hybrids,
Mhm.
right? You're not going like all in. You're not playing stuff like Stegron or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And so generally you are able to like condense that package a little bit and fit in cool stuff. So like I was going to say, if you have the slot for Sam, but if you're only doing like a hybrid thing, you probably have a couple flex slots, right?
That is my understanding. And like when I like one of the things that really struck me about Ares' release was Ares sort of brought back Darkhawk in a way that I didn't expect. He's impossible to kill. But I mean, I guess Ares didn't necessarily do that, but like Ares came out, there was a big nerf. People are playing more Arishem, and suddenly Darkhawk makes a ton of sense. And Ares makes sense in that deck because you put rocks in your opponent's deck, means the Ares is more likely to proc. And also because in a game where your opponent is drawing rocks, 12 power is like a thing that actually can just win a lane. Like if you brick
Oh
enough
yeah.
of your opponent's draws, 12 power is actually just good enough. And so, shout out to Darkhawk's incredible cockroach-like resiliency, but also the fact that I had nothing on my radar for Ares doing anything like that. I didn't expect it at all. And I think something similar could happen with Sam, where it's just like there's a deck that he goes in that absolutely zero people are like that's a thing that I was thinking about. Like everyone's thinking about the Spectrum
Right.
stuff. Everyone's doing I'm going to throw my cap to my cap. Some people are on to Thanos, some people are on to Mockingbird, some people are on to, various versions of Kraven stuff, right? I wouldn't be shocked if there was just a deck where it's just like this is a deck that manages to use him to his fullest and nobody really got to it because he's got like 3 different things that he wants to hook into. He's got the ongoing synergy,
Yeah.
he's got the move synergy, he's got the one cost stuff, he's got created cards. There's so many little bits that you can hook into with him.
Yeah. And I think Snap has been pretty face up historically in terms of like, oh, this says move on the card. You should probably look for it to go with other move cards or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is one of the cards where it's like, it's probably a departure from that actually, because of all the stuff that you're talking about, where this is a thing that just starts in play and reduces your Mockingbird. And like I said, the call thing, I'm sure that there are other things too that is going to be less obvious, where we're just gonna be like, oh yeah, this, like, ignore the actual keywords on the card, probably, and find the cool things to do with it.
Yeah. I think I would guess that this is the strongest card of the month by a lot when I look at how Sam Wilson plays out and when I look at the other cards in this month. He feels like they have been really honing in on banger season pass cards recently. Like they have just been knocking things out of the park in terms of like every time a season pass card comes out, it is like, oh my god, this card is so good. There are 2 weeks where the card is the best card in the game, and then it evens out and everyone gets used to it, and it's like a really good card, but not the best card in the game. And it's like, there have been multiple seasons in a row of basically exactly that. And I think they've overdone it a couple times, but
a lot of them got nerfed. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
But like, I think right now you have like probably our 5th like whoa level season pass card in a row. It's like Agent Venom, Surtur, Galacta, Iron Patriot, and this. And
that is a good.
It's a good run. Like their goal is selling season passes. It's a good run. And this is actually, there is one other wrinkle here, because we named all those cards. This is the first time we've gotten a card that is a repeat character on the season pass, as far as I'm aware.
True, I think.
I think that's true. Don't fact check me. This is factually 100% the first time we've ever gotten a repeat character on the season pass. And Sam Wilson, of course, Falcon becoming Captain America, the Brave New World Captain America movie coming out, in which that is the thing that happens, basically. They finally deliver on something that happened at the end of Endgame. And this is odd to me because I understand all the like other implications of it, and I'm with it. Sam Wilson is Captain America. I'm with all that. I just mean like visually and art design wise, they're going to run into the same thing where it's like, here's a Spider-Man variant that's Symbiote Spider-Man, and it's not Symbiote Spider-Man, which, by the way, I just realized was also a season pass card, and I am dead wrong. Ignore that.
I was going to ask about that. That was the one that I thought of,
Yeah.
but I was waiting for you to stop talking, and you never did.
I will never. That is my solemn promise.
That's good. I don't have to carry the conversation. I'm just vibing. Yeah, symbiote Spider-Man. I was like that is just Peter Parker, right? So
Definitely. It's absolutely
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They did like the OG Spider-Man with the symbiote suit as a variant,
Yes.
and it was like, what are you doing? Because like, what is the plan to release like other versions of these characters? I guess Sam specifically going from Falcon to Captain America, like you still have like the wings motif. You can still tell it's Sam, right? But like pretty clearly decked out in like red, white, and blue
Well,
in a
no,
lot
that's
of
the
the costumes,
problem.
right? Like he looks very different.
That's the problem, is that he doesn't. There's like a running gag in my Discord where someone will post a picture of a Falcon variant and a picture of a Sam Wilson Captain America variant and be like, which one is which? And I can never
Oh
tell the
no.
difference.
Oh no.
And that's what I wanted to get at. Like, oh my God, there are like so many where it's like, because he kept the wings going into being Captain America, it's just a bunch of Captain Americas with wings, and those look exactly like Falcon variants when you get someone to draw them in a chibi style. There's no difference. There's not enough Captain in him.
No. Okay. So the two that are on Snap Fan
Sure.
are very clearly Captain America.
I don't know. I think that Rian Gonzalez variant, like, I look at that and I'm like, that could be anything.
He's decked out in red, white, and blue, man.
He normally is. Go look at normal Falcon.
Is he?
Yes. That's just what he looks like.
I thought it was just like red.
No, he's like, he does the red, white, and blue thing as Falcon and as Captain America.
Oh, he's like red and blue.
Yeah. Like, that's just what he looks like.
Oh no, I think I found a variant that is just him and
You
the
see the
cap suit,
you
though.
see the issue, right? Like, obviously a little bit facetious, but like
Why?
yeah. Yes.
Why was that a variant?
Yes. That's exactly the problem.
Okay, so the problem to me is okay. That's also the Captain America one. So like I can tell the Cap ones apart, but yeah, the problem is that they did a bunch of them as OG Falcons, and it's just like
because like when they started the game, they didn't think they'd ever redo characters. They had a lot of I'll be generous and say naive ideas when they started this game. They were like, we'll never redo characters. We'll never need to do that. And then they're like, wait, what if people want their favorite characters to not be terrible? It's like, oh, we should probably redo characters.
Yeah,
like,
how do I make a second Spider-Man? And it's like, well, what version of Spider-Man existed? What like Peter Parker specifically existed? And it's like, oh, we could make like a cool symbiote version, right? They don't put that on the original one.
Right, but like when they first started, they had no intention of ever doing that, which is crazy because like when you think about what comics are associated with in the mainstream consciousness, one of like the first 5 things you'll get is like multiverse stuff. Like to the detriment probably of like the MCU, people will be like, oh yeah, they do multiverse stuff there. There's different versions of guys, right? They literally just cast Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. You're telling me there's not different versions of guys? And so like the idea that they had going into this feels completely bonkers in retrospect. And it is completely bonkers in retrospect. I don't know if they can clean it up, but it's just like at some point they've got to be like, yeah, no, we can make a good version of your favorite guy so you don't have to play 3-4 Cyclops forever.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I guess this Sam Wilson is pretty bad at it and goes against this, is make them not the same cost and power.
Yeah, that's another one. He's also a 2-3. This is the really what's happening here is our argument. We conclude at
awkward.
We should I've got a conclusion for you. You ready? Here's the ultimate conclusion here. Nerf Falcon to 2-2.
Buff him to 2-4.
Nice. Let's go.
For real. I'm in.
Yeah, sure. Before we jump into the next card, which I am going to ask you to read, so I'm just giving you that heads up now, I wanted to read a comment that I found remarkably insightful on our last video. Gerry T looks like a Tracy Sketchit from Pokemon jumped into the Zoolander universe. And I know you're making a face. You're like, who's Tracy Sketchit? I googled it.
Yeah.
It's a guy with a headband. Like that's the connection here. Is it's like
Okay.
it's a guy with a headband jumping into the Zoolander universe. I found that incredibly entertaining. I had no idea who Tracy Sketchit was.
Me either.
Judging by the
And
name, I am guessing he is an artist.
okay. They said it's from Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
Like you see, I have like a Mimikyu back here, right? Like and also the headband was a Snom headband. It's a Pokemon headband. So
Also,
I'm a Pokemon fan. I don't know what a Tracy Sketchit is.
it's a nickname for Rian Gonzalez.
Huh?
What you the tracing scandal? Tracy Sketchit?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Come on.
Tracy tracing is
no,
is
like
different,
the
but
name is clearly a reference to art. Tracy Sketchit? Did that actually go over your head?
It did, yeah.
Jesus.
So here's the thing.
We're just not prepared to grasp the subtlety of Tracy Sketchit.
We're talking about art, and you're making like a tracing pun.
Yes.
And it doesn't compute with me because tracing is not art to me, which was the whole like Ryan Gonzalez thing.
Oh man, I'm still a fan. I still like her art. I feel terrible, right? Like
her art's good.
Yeah, when it's not someone else's art. Yeah,
yeah. I mean the other people that she copied off of, I don't know, like hire them instead.
Yeah, I did not dig deep into that, but it did not look good. And I gotta tell you, sometimes when things don't look good for people I like, I'm not gonna dig deeper into this because I don't want to know. And so that might have been one of those situations where it's like, I really don't want to know how bad she comes off looking in this because I really would like to keep using her variance.
She looked real bad. She looked real bad. And also they were like, oh, it's just one. And then I immediately saw someone be like, oh, here's another one.
Yep.
And then I didn't see a third, but if there's two.
Yep. And I will also mention that I did promise to read that one out on the pod, but I enjoy the image of like high fashion Pokemon characters. I think that's a good gag. Where it's like so like Pokemon trainer wearing Rick Owens. I think that's a really funny gag. ASAP Rocky as a Pokemon trainer. Extremely funny mental image to me. He would have a Houndoom. And I think that concludes that little bit break there. As we jump into the next card in the season, what's it going to be, Jerry?
So I guess is it Joaquin Torres?
I think so.
So it doesn't exactly say, well, okay, I guess it does have the dates. Yeah. So it's the same. It's the same date as Sam.
Yes. So I think it's, if I had to guess, Joaquin, Thad, blanking, Diamondback. I'm blanking on the third one, but I'm pretty sure that's the order.
Torres, Falcon 2, Electric Boogaloo, 3-4, different stat line, thank God.
Could you imagine?
All Falcons are 2-3s.
Did you
ongoing? What?
I just like, because when I did my review of this card, I was like, man, I really wish this guy would have been a 2-drop. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, the stat line I would have given to make him stronger is 2-3.
Yep. See, dude, all Falcons. They're just created equal. Anyway, ongoing, the on-reveal abilities of your 1-cost cards here happen twice.
So, is this guy good enough to make it in a world? Because, like, this is why I was talking about where I kind of want him to cost 2, right? Because if he costs 2, it's a lot easier for a bounce deck to be like, this is awesome and I love this. At 3, I feel like we're borderline. At 3, it's like, this could be really good or it could be super clunky. And obviously there's stuff where like doubling up the hood, but it's already hard to manage your hand. Doubling up Rocket Raccoon, doubling up, I think, Silver Sable. There's a bunch of cool stuff you can do there, but how much does that interfere with your other stuff?
Listen, the thought of Joaquin doubling up Rocket Raccoon is hilarious to me because your opponent just walked right into it.
Talk about a walk-it raccoon.
You're walking right into my trap. Yeah. Anyway, I think that Joaquin is a hood bot. I think he's very good at that.
Mhm.
And then the other one cost stuff, like the Silver Sable nerf.
Silver Sable, dude, like Silver Sable just doing like 2 procs. Like, look, -4 makes like a solid 80% of cards in this game unplayable.
It's pretty good. I just wish that she was a little bit better if you didn't have Joaquin. So I think that he is like, he's solid. He has some applications, but is maybe not that good in bounce. And that's kind of my counterpoint, is actually like, screw you and screw bounce.
Sure.
If he's not going to bounce, that's fine. Hopefully he's good somewhere else.
He's what if we go back to the old Darkhawk bounce, where like our 1-drops don't have to be relied on to actually have numbers on them, and all we do is play like Iceman and Korg on them. It's just like we play like 4 Iceman effects a game and 4 Korgs a game, and it's just like, what's up? You whatever it is you're doing, it's probably worse than this. Thanks to everything that I've done. I don't know, maybe that's the direction it's supposed to go.
That's not bad. Like, it's kind of weird to maybe slow roll one of those cards. Like, that definitely would not feel good, especially if you're spending turn 4 playing like 2 1s and a 2 or something.
Yeah, it's like a Korg Iceman Falcon on 4. And it's like, that's cool, but it's also like, what the hell were you doing every other turn?
More crap like that. I don't know.
Just things of that nature. I do think this is a kind of triumph of design. One, because it's a Falcon that isn't a 2/3, despite my instinct to make it a 2/3. 2, because it is a card that, of all of the bounce cards, explicitly works best with Falcon. That rocks.
It definitely does do that. That is true. I don't know, like, how many demons do you need, right? You like Hood, get 2 demons, Falcon back the Hood. It's like, I don't even want to play this Hood anymore. I just wanted it to get off the board, I guess.
How many demons do you need is what they said to Solomon when he was writing the Ars Geisha.
Damn.
Yeah. How many demons do you need, bro? There's too many demons in this book.
It's what a lot of the Genshin characters are.
Yeah. Asking the Genshin developers, how many demons do you need?
Oh, they got 7 Archons. So 7,
yeah, like how
apparently.
many? Like, be real here. Come on. How many demons do you need, and why are they all white? Actually, we call that historical accuracy.
Yeah. They did it right. They
correct.
They took like, yeah, they took a little bit from here, a little bit from current culture, a little bit from traditional historic stuff.
Yeah. 6,000 years ago, the race of white people was created by a scientist named Yakub. That is the official belief of this podcast, fully endorsed.
Oh God, what is that from?
What, Yakub?
Yeah.
Yeah,
what
that's
are
like
you referencing right now.
That's like Nation of Islam type stuff.
Okay.
There's like a specific sect that I'm trying to remember the name of.
No, I've heard about this, and I was like, what is that? Why do I know this?
Why do you know Yakub? I mean, ancestrally, all of us white devils know the name of our creator.
It's like epigenetic memory.
Yeah, we all
you hear the name thing.
Yeah. A lot of the images of the guy, and I find this very funny, involve him having basically the same cranial structure as Leader. And so envisioning Leader as like Yakub is something I get a kick out of every so often.
New variant, let's go.
That seems like something that like contravenes several laws. Moving back onto the conversation of Joaquin Torres. This is a card that I think is probably better than it's getting credit for. I think there are legitimately strong things that this card can do, and I think that there are no cards that will replace it in any deck that it goes in, because every deck that is built in involving this card will be about this card. unless it like goes in bounce and is fringy there, basically. But if you're building a deck
Yeah.
for him, you kind of will need him.
No, for sure. And it is one of those cards that is going to get better over time. I will say though, other than like Silver Sable, Hydra Bob, like how many one cost things have we gotten recently? Like
It's
it hasn't been a
impossible.
lot. There have been things like Kate Bishop though,
Mhm.
which is cool. And one of the arrows, I guess, works with this card, so you get to roll the dice. But uh if they are doing more event type of things, I think that is, I guess, like Agony was another
King
one
Atri.
cost in E-Tree too. Yeah. So like of the four that I can think of, yeah, we got one on reveal card.
Yeah, I think they covered a lot of ground with the early one drop on reveals. Like, if you're like, what do we want
They
a
did.
one drop on reveal to do? Oh, put a rock. Oh, disrupt the curve. Oh, we want our one drop on reveal to gain power. Okay, well, we have multiple one drop on reveals to gain power. We've got Hawkeye, we've got Rocket Raccoon. Like, there's kind of a limited amount of effects you can actually put on one of those cards, right? And
Yeah.
so you end up with this weird space that is actually very full. Like, of all the spaces in Marvel Snap, I think one drop design is probably the fullest. Like that seems like the most full space that exists right now in terms of like how the hell do you even make another one of these?
Yeah, the thing about Joaquin though is that I still think it's a little short. So they need something. Maybe it is just like, oh, we need power creep to happen so that maybe Silver Sable gets like a power back or whatever. Like
Yeah.
or they're able to make stronger one drops. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you are definitely right where it's like, well, you got like Iceman, Korg, a bunch of power stuff. Like what else can a one drop do on reveal that hasn't been done? What would you actually want to like double with this thing? And it's like I like we have things that pump themselves, I guess, but like we have things that go tall and not wide.
Yeah, and it's like, but like that's the thing. Like, what would going wide on a one drop even look like? The world's smallest white tiger? Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, no, I mean like Squirrel Girl, but like I'm not talking about creating board slots, but it's like,
Mm,
you know, Chavez is like +2 top of your deck. Maybe this is like a
yeah.
1/2 that's like +1 in the other two lanes or something. I
Yeah,
don't
no, I
know.
was thinking about like what about the world's smallest claw, right? But that would have to be an ongoing, and then it wouldn't work with Joaquin.
Yeah, just a thing that like kind of one shot Marvel boys effectively. It's just like give a thing in the adjacent locations +1 power or something.
Yeah,
Just
that
a
would be like the
non-reveal.
kind of thing that they should probably do that. Yeah, that seems like a solid thing, right? Like compare with Rocket
Yeah.
Raccoon and Hawkeye, make it a little bit lower ceiling, a little bit higher floor. Seems solid to me.
And it's not a thing that you can play on turn 1 either, so it's
Yeah.
not like it's all upside.
Yeah, like
So, I
a
don't know, something
squirrel
like that.
girl that instead of squirrels does plus power.
Yeah,
Book it,
there you go.
Glenn. I think that's all we have to say about Joaquin Torres, but I will say I am non-zero interested in this card in terms of like this could be the kind of card that a bunch of people skip and then they're like, "Why did I skip this card? I can't play any of his decks 3 weeks later." Like it definitely has that potential where it's so
It
central
does.
to what it looks to do that like 6 months from now when they make a busted one drop, you're going to be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I skipped Joaquin."
Well, that is the inherent problem, is that, like, you should not be purchasing cards now to use
Yes.
6 months from now, and if you just can't go in your collection and craft it for tokens, you have to, like, wait for it to show up in the shop and pin it, like, the whole thing is just awful, right? And I would hope that that gets fixed at some point.
Yeah. Who's next on the list? Is it Thad?
Thaddius! Thunderbolt Ross!
Nice.
Uh, old white guy with a mustache. 2/2. When your opponent ends a turn with unspent energy, draw a card with 10 or more power.
I feel like this card is either busted or total ass. Like he's just like
It's hard to say. Stat line's not great,
Mhm.
and I don't know about you, but most of my opponents try and spend their energy. So it's
Yes.
sort of like win more in a lot of instances. Maybe there are things that you can do, like Luna Snow or whatever,
Mm.
where like, oh, you really wanted to play your 5-drop because it's your best card, and maybe you don't have a thing to use the extra energy on. I don't know.
I think there are two things that stick out to me about this card, and I realize whenever I say there are X things that stick out to me about a card, halfway through the last of those
At
things, I
least
will
there are at
remember
least two
more
things.
things. But thing number one is this is a big consistency piece for any Scar deck because it is usually going to draw you Scar, or it is going to draw you a thing that discounts Scar. One prop is
Well,
a big deal.
it is if it's drawing you actual Scar or like
Mhm.
actual death. It is less good if it's drawing you like your 7th 410. It's
Sure,
like,
but it is like the kind of thing where it's like, oh, okay, I can use this to, let's say if I'm playing Ares, Cull Obsidian, Scar, Surtur, one other thing like that, right? I can use this to like specifically target basically three of those cards. Because Ares
yeah.
won't count and Surtur won't count. And so it's gonna be pulling the stuff that actually matters. Like, yes, it's bad
If
when you get your like multiple redundant 410s, but we might be able to build the deck such that it doesn't have those.
maybe, and especially if you Zabu on one also,
Mm-hmm.
it means that you drawing more of these 410s that are oftentimes very clunky, maybe now they're less clunky.
Yeah. Like, there's some really interesting stuff that this card I think enables. But like again, like the potential to specifically draw Scar, to have that card more. One of the biggest ways this deck loses now is it's like it's snowballing, it's snowballing, it's snowballing, and then its final turn is crap because it didn't draw Scar. It's just like just a normal deck final turn. And it's like I did all this setup and I don't have my free guy. And I feel like I don't know what percentage putting Thaddius in your deck buffs your chances of having the Scar nut draw, but there is a percentage at which you will put him in that deck every time. I don't know if he hits that, but there is a world in which he hits that percentage and you're like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, especially considering the low cost cards in that deck
Mm,
are not all that valuable. It's like, yeah,
yeah.
like armor is good, right? But like maybe playing Sam, you do get to shave on ones
Mhm.
to enable Cull Obsidian. So yeah, maybe you have an extra slot. And I mean that deck often just didn't do anything on turn 2.
It has a lot of there's just like I think it's actually a testament to how strong the package is that there's so much crap that is the early game of that deck where it's just like, yeah, what are your early game cards? Like, okay, Nico Minoru, Zabu, Iron Patriot, good card, but it's your only 2-drop a lot of the time, other than Armor, which is just a flat 2/3 unless you're teching something specific. Cosmo, Juggernaut, Surtur, those are like the 7 cards, give or take a Hydra Bob, that tend to make up the like pick 6 of those 8, you know? And that's the first line of your deck. And it's like
Yeah.
no other deck runs cards that are like that crap, honestly.
No, it is very much a symptom of like we have the top end that we want and not the bottom end, and so we're
Yes.
just kind of playing what's there. And I guess yeah, it is a testament to how strong a 010 is
Yeah,
that
pretty
that
good.
like you can get away with doing that. So yeah, I mean even if it's like 10%
Yeah,
Thaddeus works out or whatever, it might still be worth it. I could see it, but I think more so I'm interested in it in stuff that is looking for something that's hyper specific where
sure.
you're almost guaranteed to hit like something like death, right? Mid range, like Lady Deathstrike type of stuff. It's like, you know, if it does hit there, you're super happy because otherwise you're going through all these hoops to make your thing work. And then if you don't draw the card, it just kind of doesn't matter. And I'm sure there are other things like that that I'm not thinking of. Maybe they don't have 10 power, but
Is it unsafe to make this card a 2/3?
I guess how many decks on average play a thing that has 10 power or are close to?
I don't think it's too many ballparking it in my head, but I feel like if you made this a 2/3, it's going in like every Wiccan deck and then just drawing them cards for free. You know what I mean? Like if you make this a 2/3, like the Wiccan deck playing even just like Magneto Arrow is still gonna play this because it says 2/3 draw a card and it's a card from your deck and it gets you those options and it's just like I whenever I look at this card, I'm like, oh, 2/2, that's way too weak. And then I'm like, okay, what if we made it a 2/3? And then I'm like, you can't do that. Like, that's the cycle that I keep going in.
Yeah, it's possible that maybe it just goes in every deck at that point.
Yeah.
Or,
Like,
or close to every, not every deck. That's hyperbolic, but like
yeah.
any deck that can reasonably play, like if Wiccan was playing a 5,
Yep.
or like an Goliath at 6/9 or something. Now it's like, well, maybe you play Magneto or Red Hulk and play this thing instead. And like
Yes.
a lot of decks would make that change. And I would not want to see that sort of homogenization.
I do think that would be the risk with this card, where it's just like, if you put it at 2/3, it's just like, I don't feel like you're paying enough of a cost for what this guy could be. Where at 2/2, it's like you're specifically putting it in a deck that is excellent at compensating for having a weak early game by allowing you to have a very powerful late game. That being the Scar deck, of course. And this is now a card that we no longer have to worry about being in 40% of the decks in the game, which, prior to Iron Patriot releasing, I would have said is a goal of theirs. Post Iron Patriot release, maybe they're just chill with it. I don't know.
I think the card is pretty interesting in general because of Iron Patriot existing, where for the most part, folks had to tighten up their curves and be prepared to fight those fights. And if that is the case, I don't know how often this guy is going to be triggering.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly if it was a 2/3 and showing up more often, everyone is just so incentivized to spend all their energy every turn, no matter what, that maybe the card just like drops off. But like at 2/2, I mean, since Iron Patriot still exists, maybe this isn't going to happen. But at 2/2, it's like, oh, if it doesn't show up all the time when your opponent plays it, you're like, crap, I wasn't ready for this. My deck doesn't have like a tight curve.
Yep.
I'm gonna end up floating a mana on turn 4, turn 5 or something, and then they get this huge payoff.
They just get like a free Scar, and it's just like, oh, okay, I've just guaranteed that they have that. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I guess the card is more interesting if it is slightly weaker.
That's
it's like,
yeah, that makes sense.
More likely to pay you off too.
Maybe. I mean, I think where you really lose out is like the ability to go like this is an interesting thing to me, is like, the weaker a 2-drop is on its own stats, the issues you get to with playing that card are not really big on the early turns of the game, but when you get into like turn 5, 2+3, that's when that stuff starts getting really bad, right? Because like if you're playing a 2/2 and they're playing a 2/3, you're not losing out big. But if you're playing like a 2/2 and a 3-drop and they're playing a 5-drop, then you are starting to lose out big on numbers. And so it really just makes the card, I think, feel more rigidly defined as a you play this on 2 or you don't play it at all kind of card. Which is actually
where I'd be at.
Yeah, like, and that is actually what Scar wants, right? Like, Scar doesn't want to play this crap on 5. It does not care about that. It's playing a 3, a 4, a 5, and then some big guys, right? Like, that's all it does anyway. So I guess you'd call it inflexible or like brittle way in which this card presents itself does actually lend itself to the deck it seems to be made for.
I'll certainly try and come up with bad packages for other things. We'll see. But yeah, Scar makes sense, I guess. Boring, but whatever.
All right, who's next? Oh, fumbling.
Redwing.
Oh,
3/3.
yes. Okay.
The first time this moves, add a card from your hand to the old location.
So
I think this card's kind of cracked.
You think it's cracked?
It's kind of cracked.
Sure. Go for it.
It's lightly cracked. Look, this is a card that cheats on energy in a dramatic way.
Okay.
If you are building around it. And I don't think that this is a card where it's like, oh, just play it anywhere, you're pretty happy with it. You have to do very specific things. Like, you have to have move enablers. I think like Aranya, Madam Web, pretty easy. Like those you can just slot in as like a small package and that's fine. But you also kind of have to like dump your hand, right? And just get your hand to only have specifically big things. So Dracula comeback or what?
No, like there's a guy who was occasionally playing around at High Infinite who loved to mess with like Dracula dump move package decks, where what he'd be doing is playing Black Swan, Dracula, and then like Gwenpool or something alongside a like Dracula Infinite, Giganto, whatever, right? And so what would happen is on the final turn of the game, there'd be an activated Black Swan. They would be Draculaing, and then they'd be making, like a 24 power dagger, right? It would be like a giant dagger or a giant human torch alongside the other like 8 million one drops they play in the Dracula thing, right?
Yep.
This is now second Dracula for that kind of strategy, where it's like you have this Redwing, your entire rest of your hand is 1-cost cards, and some of them move stuff around, and all of them cost 0 off a Black Swan. And then you also have like 2 6-dropses, one feeds your Dracula, one feeds your Redwing. And suddenly you're looking at like a very insane amount of points. Like,
it could also be a Thaddius deck. I mean,
ooh.
It depends. Like you need probably like 4 ones. You play like Torch, Aranya, Ghost Spider, Iron Fist, Dagger, Madam Web, presumably.
Mm-hmm.
And then Black Swan, Redwing, Dracula.
3 big guys.
Things.
Red Hulk, Giganto, Infinite, ballpark it.
Yeah, maybe you can get away with only playing 2 if you play Thad, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
It is probably better to just play 3 big things and no Thad, but it is another type of deck where it's like, I mean,
I can see that deck. Like,
really
that's the kind of thing where it's like, it does there's like a certain type of play pattern that I just despise, which is, I've held everything until the final turn of the game. Like, I hate it so much. It's so insanely annoying to have decks that are that. Move Bounce just got nerfed, thank God. Hella was this when it was good. And is this when it's bad, but it's more of a problem when it's good, right? Like, where it's just like, haha, behold, I've given you no indication of what's going on here, but... And then it's just like 45 power.
Hell is even worse because they don't have agency. Yes. It's just you versus the RNG. Yeah. It's not like, oh, your opponent outsmarted you.
Yeah, no.
They knew what you were cooking.
Yeah, it's just she was cooking. Hella's a great gamer, just a really, really brilliant mind reader occasionally. And like I'm kind of with you. I think this card is getting severely underrated because it goes outside the paradigm people expect. And people see move on the card, and they're like, why would I play this in a move deck? And the answer is you wouldn't. You'd play it in Dracula Dump.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems really good to me. I don't know if you can accomplish the same sort of thing, but that sort of setup makes a ton of sense to me. Whereas, yeah, you play it in a move deck, and what do you do? Maybe you cheat in Living Tribunal.
No,
maybe that's okay for your big torches or whatever.
There, right?
It's probably garbage, but like, I don't know.
Yeah. Like,
you can do it. I'm not saying it's optimal.
Sure. But. Yeah, no, but like this strikes me as like, if it hits, this is an archetype creator rather than something that is good and goes in other stuff. And because it is such uncharted territory, this could either be a big slam dunk hit, or if that archetype doesn't end up panning out, it will be a big whiff, right? Like, that's just how it is when you try to hit for power.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen enough people saying that they think this card has the potential that I think we think it does. Like, a lot of people look at this and they're like, they're only seeing the bad side of this because they're used to not thinking about new archetypes there.
So there are like normal decks, right? They're kind of built here.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's stuff like Phoenix Force, which is like over here.
Yeah.
Right? And like, I don't know who built the first Phoenix Force deck. Certainly I tried when that card came out, and I was just like, I don't really know. But then there are just some Gigabrain Yakub. I don't know, like big brain folks out there.
Yakub cooked up Phoenix Force in his laboratory 6,000 years ago.
And then it was just like, oh yeah, we add the Shuri Nimrod endgame, or like this other endgame, like they added another layer to it, and I was just like, I couldn't even get to step 1, you know?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, the Redwing stuff is like kind of obvious to me. Like you read the card and it's like, ooh, I can see the vision. And maybe that was because I was a Dracula dumper, you
I
know?
know, I see the vision specifically because of one player named Splat who like once did a final turn 40 power Human Torch discard the Infinite to Dracula to me, and I was just like, okay, fuck this.
Yeah.
It's like it wasn't good, but it was really annoying. It's like I can actually see this as a card aimed for that deck having been played by like 2 people ever. Like that's the reason I can understand where I think this card can go is because I've lost to it.
Yeah. So this is close to Phoenix Force. It is in that realm. It is, I don't think it's as big brain or anything because the blueprint is already there for the most part, right? But I think that adding redundancy to decks like this, like that's kind of their power spike, right? Is when the Dracula plus Infinite Giganto like actually does work out. And this is a second piece of that. And it's not like one necessarily takes away from the other. Like you can still have like pretty big Torch, pretty big Dracula, and then Redwing cheat something into play all in different locations now. So like you're also adding to the total power output.
If I had to pick one card that had the highest likelihood of making me mad as hell and trying to get it nerfed during this season, it would be Redwing.
I think it's good.
Yep.
Energy cheat is strong, and it does ask you to jump through some hoops, but is worth it.
Yeah, I read this card as basically saying you have 2 Draculas in your Dracula dump deck now. And so it's like when it works, you are doing not just normal Drac dump stuff, but also like, creating a dagger or a Human Torch or whatever.
Yep.
And then vomiting, 20 power and 14 power on the final turn of the game. And it's just like, oh, that's probably just pretty good.
Last card.
Yeah.
Diamondback 3/3 ongoing. Enemy cards here afflicted with negative power have an additional -2 power.
I hate Luke Cage so much. I don't even have the words for it anymore.
But you love Ajax.
My point is, the second this card comes out, it's just Luke Cage and everything. This card will not get a fair shake. There is no chance in hell this card gets a fair shake, ever. The entire first week is going to be people playing Luke Cage stuff. And every time there's a Luke Cage meta, the same thing happens. The people that invest the least in anti-venom Luke Cage, as far as other toxic stuff go, get the most rewarded. It's a stupid, backwards thing that sucks. And so this is a card that says invest in toxic. And you know how you beat everyone investing in toxic is be a Luke Cage anti-venom deck that plays Ronin or whatever. And that's going to be the right thing to do for the entire week, and it's going to suck.
Well, you should just show up with some rogues. Man, what are you doing?
Yeah, just do Invisible Woman Rogue and guess where they're going to play their Luke Cage on the final turn of the game. Just get them, dude.
Yeah. In a vacuum, Diamondback seems pretty nice.
I agree.
Seems like oh, you kind of got another Ajax for
Yeah.
a location. That's pretty good.
It's a big lady. That's some hella stats on that lady, dude. That's like a 311. Yeah. That is a lot of numbers. Like if you're hazmatting people, that is a lot of numbers. This is a really strong tool for a deck that is already strong. But whenever this deck gets strong, the best thing to do is play like a slightly worse version of the deck so you don't lose to Luke Cage.
True. Is there ever like a Hearthstone, like bring 3 decks, no cards can overlap kind of thing so that only one of their decks gets Luke Cage?
Oh, man. Yeah, no, it's like
could we draft champions and ban Luke Cage? Is that doable?
This card kind of goes insane if he doesn't exist, right? Like, you imagine Malekithing this. It's just like your Malekith is 17 power and drew you a card. Like, is that not completely insane? There's a bunch. This card is cool as hell and does a bunch of cool stuff, and we're never gonna get to see any of it until 3 weeks later.
Dude, if Luke Cage didn't exist, you could like Surtur like Ajax Diamondback. Like,
wait, no, she doesn't gain the power.
Oh, they get minus.
Yeah, it's an additional.
Oh, you said 311. And I was like,
that is a 311.
No, it is, but not on the card.
Sure,
I got excited for a second.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like that's like it's just a really good piece of text. Like that is a remarkably good piece of text that is just 100% put into really annoying category thanks to Luke Cage existing.
What would they have to do to Luke to make it like, oh, don't even bother?
I don't think there's a thing you can do. If you're making cards that are like 311, 524 or whatever without Luke Cage existing, I think it's just like you're going to play the card that beats that crap, right? Like you gotta.
Yeah, like even like OG Sandman stats like 4-1.
Yeah, that would probably do it, but I don't think you'd want to. 4-1. Oh my god.
And that's so bad.
That is putrid, dude. 4-1. That's horrible. That's horrible.
I was like 5-0. Like what? Where?
Give
where
him
are
the
we
Kang
at?
stat line. What about you make Kang remove all afflictions currently applied and then reset the game?
I mean, if you get to redo your turn,
yeah, it's like same effect, just it also removes the afflictions.
Then yeah, I mean it's better than the 4-1 I was suggesting. It's a 0-0.
Did it?
What do you mean?
Okay, yeah, no, it's true. It is a 0-0, but it is a 0-0 that requires you discard a card effectively. So you know.
K. I'll discard a card to heal for 30 or whatever.
Sure, yeah, no, that probably makes sense. But yeah, like I don't know. I thought about this, and what I eventually came up with as an analogy was like if you imagine the space of an afflict, like the afflict, not necessarily the afflict deck, but like various types of cards. There's a bunch of cards that do afflict in various different ways, right? Like there's cards that afflict in order to grow, like Silver Sable and Cassandra Nova and Ajax, right? Or that's a different kind of thing. There's cards that grow from afflictions, like Ajax and Diamondback, but they don't afflict themselves, right? There's cards that purely afflict other stuff that do it in different ways, like On Reveal from Hazmat and Ongoing from US Agent and Man Thing, but even those are delineated in terms of like how they actually have different targets and different ways in which they want to affect things. And then you have cards that use affliction as a tax on getting a discount or as a counterbalance to a discount, like Valentina and Anti-Venom. And then you have, for every single iteration of those cards, whatever that massive pie chart is, if you want to interact with them in any way, positive or negative, it's entirely Luke Cage.
Yeah. I think we're talking about splitting Luke Cage somehow, right? And it might be that the ongoing stuff is different than anything that like directly affects the power toughness. So like Luke Cage would be more like a Shadow King than a thing that shuts off like Man Thing.
Global Shadow King on reveal. Sure. like just anything, dude. Like, just split them up into Global Shadow King on reveal and Global one that only affects ongoings and not actual affliction. Done.
Yeah, and maybe that leads to something like, oh, Hazmat needs to get nerfed at some point or whatever, or some of the numbers need to come down on Diamondback or whatever. Like, who cares? All of this stuff should be reevaluated.
I hate Luke Cage so much. Like that conversation, like it really drove it in. Like, look at all the cool and different ways they can do afflict, and then all of the ways in which you interact with any of those cool and different ways is the same goddamn card. He's the entire pie chart.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird that it's like a anti-venom. You know? Like it fixes your own stuff that you're cheating costs with, and
it's just too much crap. He does too much crap. He too much. It's too much. And I feel bad for Diamondback, who is a card whose aesthetic I love. That's a cool ass looking card. I really like that. And whose ability is a card that I would like to use. Like there's a aesthetic appeal, there's a coolness factor, it goes in a deck that I like, but it's going to be miserable to play when it comes out. It's just going to be miserable.
I don't know. I'm gonna do it. It'll be fine. They can't all have Luke Cage.
I beg to differ.
Surely
Surely.
You don't draw 3 of your cards per game.
Yeah. I mean, unless you have Thaddius Ross to draw your 10s, and then you're going to guarantee your Luke Cage or even more.
I don't float energy.
Right. Of course. Naturally.
Not my style.
Yeah.
Not my style.
When I goldfish, I don't float energy either.
If I miss a drop, I just
retreat. Yeah. Just out of here. Dude, I saw the most insane stat line of all time. It was from a player named Fudge. He's like, when I saw it, he was like rank 40 or something. And it was his season stats. He had gained 180 cubes. I want you to guess his win rate.
53%.
47%.
Holy shit.
It's the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, me, for context, I was like 58% win rate plus about 340 cubes on the season. 340, 360, something like something in that range, right? But that's a pretty impressive. Those are some decent numbers. I gotta get better at snapping, right? And then he has the exact opposite, where the win rate is literally below 50, but he's like still positive on cubes by a pretty large margin.
By a lot, yeah. Like, I do remember. So like when I started in the beta in Snap, and I was infinite within like 2 days.
Yeah, Mr. Roboto.
Yeah, I just jammed.
Mm-hmm.
I was so happy. Had something to do with my time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I got to like rank 80 or 90 and was just kind of like up and down. And I was like, all right. I'll pay attention to the Snap thing. I'll try and do a better job of this. Not just like Snap turn 1 in the dark because I'm just pretty sure I'm going to win because you're bad. And yeah, started paying attention to it and trying to do it meaningfully and smart. And it was just like, yeah, weird.
Yeah, my Snap style is mitigated by the fact that I am a streamer, and if I lose an 8-cuber on stream, it ruins my entire stream. Where it's just like, my whole
you.
Yeah, for me. Like, my
for
Snap
you,
style,
not for anyone else. No one else cares.
No one else actually cares, but I will like beat my head in, right? And so my Snap style is extremely risk averse in order to preserve my own mental health and ability to continue streaming.
I'd rather lose 4 cubes 5 times than lose 8 cubes once.
I mean, I wouldn't want to do that either.
Well, that's effectively what you're signing up for.
That's not what I'm signing up for, because I don't lose 4 cubers much either. I'd rather lose 2 cubers 8 times than lose 8 cubes once.
I'd rather lose 2 cubes 100 times.
I'd rather lose 8 cubes 1 time each. Yeah. Or I'd rather you lose 1 cube 8 times in a row. But yeah, no, I'm a momentum gamer. And if I start, it's not just like, oh, an 8 cube loss is bad. It's like, oh my god, I just fell so far away from where I started. Now I have to stream for 8 hours to get it back. It's bad.
What's the opposite of like a moral victory?
Yeah, that is exactly what. Yes.
Like I played the game and I lost, but like on the last turn I tricked my opponent and got in for an extra damage or whatever.
The opposite of a moral victory. I would describe it as the KMBest. Yeah, I think that's what it is. That sounds right to me.
No notes.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to rank these cards? You want to power rank them?
I think Redwing is my highest, honestly. I closed the tab because I'm so stupid.
You're like, we're done. I don't have to know these cards anymore.
I'm a visual I need to see the cards. Anyway, Redwing, then Sam. I would say Diamondback in a vacuum, but that's not the world we live in.
Yeah, it's not.
So other cards are Thaddius and Joaquin.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, like I think Diamondback is a strong ass card.
She is. She's good. Just she won't be for like a month.
Joaquin might be on the bottom, but it might be Diamondback.
I have Thad on the bottom, I think Thad is the one who's like, is like, I don't want him to be a 2/3, but I also don't know if he's going to be good enough without that. Having this conversation though, I feel like I was like, oh, these cards aren't that good. And the more we talk about them, the more I'm like, oh, these cards might be good. Like, these might be actual cards. I don't know. I came into this with the mindset of like, I don't know how good these cards are going to be, and I'm leaving it thinking we could be in a full Redwing meta next month, right? Like,
they're not like in your face powerful either. Like Redwing makes you work for it.
yeah,
For sure. And the direct dump stuff is the obvious shell, I think, to both of us because it pretty cleanly fits there.
yeah.
But I also do wonder if there are other things that you're supposed to be doing,
I come away from this, and I remember saying earlier in the episode, I think Sam is number 1 with the bullet, and I don't know if that's true anymore.
Longevity, maybe.
I think he's pretty good. He's a pretty damn good
I think
card.
I think he's worse than the last 4 season passes, but
Do you?
I don't think that says anything.
Ballpark it from where they are now. Current Agent Venom, current Surtur.
Yeah, I mean, current Agent Venom.
I've been enjoying current Agent Venom. That Havoc deck is kind of decent. It's the usual like 3 drops and below pile with AV. Are you familiar with this one?
I mean, I've seen decks like that. I haven't seen.
Yeah, it's basically like
I did not look at your Twitter today.
Oh wow, that's crazy. I'm actually offended. It's bounceless bounce effectively, where like it occupies a space in which the bounce deck used to occupy, but because of the increased applicability of cards like Red Guardian and Cosmo, that it is better able to occupy that space in terms of reacting to threats, right? Like it can be a Cassandra Nova deck, it could be a Red Guardian deck, it could be a Cosmo deck. It's a little bit more flexible.
Okay. I'm looking on your tweeters.
I think it's going to be like the 3rd tweet of the thread, if I had to guess. I still can't tab out, so I can't help you.
Yeah.
For those who were unaware,
okay.
Every time I tab out, Jerry's face freezes. And
happens.
Yeah, it's just, he got too much Botox, and it's related to the tabbing out. I don't, it doesn't make sense to me. You'd have to ask the plastic surgeon.
Hood, Bast, Kitty, Nico,
yeah,
Havoc, Thena, US Agent, Agent Venom, Nova, Sage, Cosmo, Red Guardian. Yeah, these are all cards I enjoy.
I've been enjoying that deck recently. It's just like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. I like it. This is a nice little thing. And I had a lot of fun playing it. I had a lot of success playing it. And it's like a little more niche than you would want, but I feel like it's the kind of deck that's just going to be like niche and good for basically forever. Where it's like, that deck will be on my tier lists for 6 months.
Fair. Agent Venom, where do you think that card should have ended up? Because I feel like, dude, even at a 2/5 stat line, it's just like setting things to 3 is not super impressive because there are just a lot of things that are already at 3 power, right? And getting it away from 4 was definitely super, super meaningful. So like if you wanted to keep it to set to 4,
Ugh.
what would you do?
If I had to keep it to set it 4?
Yeah.
I would do like, I feel like 2/1 or 3/4. Like I would punish that card. I cannot remember a metagame where we had a more clear, exact, correct 12 cards to play than that Agent Venom Claw Iron Man deck. These are the 12 cards. Go get your 60% win rate. Don't even worry about it. Like there was nothing close. In a lot of metas, there's a bunch of stuff you can do to mess around in a deck, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go this card in, this card out. No, none of that. Play those 12 cards. No question, nothing. And
part of that was because of Agent Venom setting cards to a specific power, right?
Yes,
like it does kind of limit your options.
Absolutely. But like, yeah, it was just like, I don't know. I think that when you ask where did Agent Venom, where should that have ended up? Where it is right now. where this deck is good. You can play it and succeed at every level of the game. And also, if it was any better, it would be the exact same. You can play only these 12 cards right now. You cannot make a deck like that much better, because then it becomes that again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 3-cost one is significantly worse because you get one less draw step of this card that you have now ideally enhanced. So I don't know, like 3-4, 3-5. I don't even think that that really cuts it, but 3-6 is maybe kind of weird.
They do 3-6s now, apparently. What's up with that? Luna Snow 3-6. The hell?
Well, it also gives your opponent energy. I think that that's a downside card. That makes sense.
I've never seen a 3-6 that just like did something that you actually want before. Like this, I guess we do in 3-6s now, where it's like, I didn't know we could do that. Like, I didn't know you were allowed to do that. I had no idea.
Well, you weren't doing it enough when she was a 3-5. So what are they supposed to do?
I get it. Like, if you have a 3-5 and you look at the numbers and you're like, this card is still too weak, you buff it and go to 3-6. You're just like, but then you look at the 3-6, you're just like, that just looks wrong. It's just like, I don't know why that just looks wrong. And then
how many Luna Snows are in the decks in your?
Oh, basically zero. Yeah, she's still not good. But like, she has some interesting applications where it's like, her best application, I think, tends to be with like Killmonger death type decks. So there's like a Thanos Killmonger death deck that's been running around that plays her. There's like a Mill deck sub variation that's been running around that plays her. She's not that bad, but she's also not that good, which is a long way of saying just rip the Band-Aid off and make her 3-7.
Oh.
Just do it.
You're like, oh
no, for some reason that makes more sense to me. Just be like, yes, like, this is actually
3-6 is weird. 3-7 is fine.
Just be like, this is actually the same level of downside as Swordmaster, which is to say, you're only doing it in a deck that takes massive advantage of it. So just do it 3-7. Just do it. Just get it over with.
Honestly, that is completely fair, because like 3-6 Swordmaster was not a card that people were just like finding spots for, you know? And then even at 3-7, it's like
right, like that, like just bite the bullet and be like, stop trying to act like she's a vanilla card at this point. Stop acting like it. Just be like, we saw what it is when you're like, oh, this is a vanilla plus card. It is clear at this point that she is a pure synergy card. So screw it. 3-7 it. Just be like, this is actually a downside. You guys are stupid. You have no idea what you're doing.
All right, 3-7 Agent Venom sold.
I mean, that'd be a pretty goddamn good card.
No,
there you did.
I'm gonna try this Havoc deck.
Okay.
I have like a negative amount of Havoc boosters.
Nice.
So, I don't know what the best stat line would be for Agent Venom, but I would like to see it go back to setting things to 4. I feel like that was the most meaningful and like fun part of the card, and now it's like, it's okay. I'm gonna try the Havoc stuff, like I said, but I don't know. Maybe it, yeah, just ends up like the Pixie stat line where it's like not worth playing, or very low impact 3-drop where you don't get a lot of turns to do it. So yeah, maybe there is just no satisfying outcome.
Yeah, I think it is currently in the right spot, which is to say, since it is such a prescriptive, restrictive kind of card in terms of what it allows you to do and what you can actually play with it, it is going to be a card that is only ever going to be in like 1 or 2 decks. And as long as those decks are reasonably good, which I think they are, then that's probably all you can ask for a card like this. It's like saying, like, is Surtur a failure because it only goes in Scar decks? Like, no, not really. And it also doesn't only go in Scar decks. But like, I think Agent Venom's more limited even than Surtur.
No, for sure. And I guess like Doom 2099 is maybe like a more applicable comparison, where it's like you do need to build your deck around it. Obviously, it plays well with Arsham.
Yes.
Right? Doom does. So it kind of has 2 homes, where it's like the Ari home and the non-Ari home, but like it's not a card that just slots in everywhere, right? Like,
yeah.
If you're playing it in a deck, it is probably a Doom deck. If you're playing Agent Venom, it is probably an Agent Venom deck.
Yeah. And I think Agent Venom's a little more restrictive than those cards, and because it's so restrictive, you never want it to be the best thing in the game, because then you get in those situations where it's like, these are the correct 12 cards to play, full stop.
Probably true. Yeah, I guess, I mean, that is more true the lower the value is that you're setting power to the cards of, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I yeah, because the higher it gets, the more flexibility you have, the more cards you can actually fit in there. The lower it gets, the more like you have to do this it is.
Yeah, that's how I feel, at least. I do think that, yeah, maybe there are still like 12 very obvious cards or 11 very obvious
Yeah.
cards, but
I mean, the main casualty of the going from 4 to 3 was that you lost out on Iron Man being a big enough guy to be worth running instead of doing the Havoc stuff. The deck got a lot smaller. And so instead of being like an Iron Man at 4 plus Mystique thing, like you lost out on that because you lost out on Claw, which gave you like not enough overlap, not enough good reasons to run Mystique. And so then you're just sitting there like, I don't have reasons to do this thing that this deck is asking me to do. And so you end up cutting the Iron Man and getting a lot smaller. And that's how you get the deck you have here.
yeah. And a lot of that could change, right? Like you could get a pseudo claw replacement, something that
Yeah.
makes Mystique a little bit more palatable. Maybe that's fine. I don't know. But
yeah, like if they printed Claw 2 and it said it was a 5/0 and it put 12 power at the right lane, then that version of the deck would probably be back.
Yeah, maybe. Or I don't know if there's like Mr. Fantastic. That card sucks, but
There was he had a brief shining moment of like people were trying him in Moonstone stuff, and then everyone remembered the card Enchantress exists, and it was like, yeah, all right, let's move on from that.
yeah, never mind. You posted one deck with Mr. Fantastic. I was like, I'll try this. I'm pretty sure it's garbage, and yeah, it was garbage, especially with something like Mystique, where you're like, oh, I'll put one power here and then Mystique it.
Get massively Red Guardian. That card's definitely not in every deck.
Yeah,
like there is something about Marvel Snap where it's like week to week, a lot of how good a deck is determined by what tech cards your opponent is playing. Like for example,
sure.
a lot of people are getting a lot of value out of Scar stuff right now. I put Shang-Chi back in my Arishem deck. Suck it. Like, get out of here, dude. I don't want to deal with this crap anymore. Like, and that means that I am now no longer running Enchantress. Is that a spot that you can now try to exploit a little bit better? Probably. Mobius and Mobius, card coming back into vogue for sure, in my opinion. Takes a huge dump on the Bullseye Nut Draw. Takes a huge dump on Scar. Very good into Iron Patriot. Feels like a Mobius meta. But that has knock-on effects, right? Like those three things are why you'd be playing Mobius, but it also takes Mr. Negative and puts him in the garbage. And so like there's so much about like we've had like a good few weeks, months even, of Mr. Negative being like a real deck. And a lot of that is because there weren't enough compelling other reasons to play Mobius, and he's a 3/3 and a 3/3 sucks. But now we're suddenly approaching the like critical mass of like, wow, there's a lot of good Mobius decks right now, or wow, there's a lot of good decks in which that card is unbelievably good. And even though it has this awkward thing as a tech card where it's like, it sucks so bad that the situation needs to be super dire before you whip it out, we are now approaching the point at which the situation is super dire, and Mr. Negative is just going to get, like, shoved back into the dumpster for 6 months or however long it takes people to remember that he's good when Mobius isn't around.
I think that's okay. That's fine with me.
Really? Why?
It's kind of similar to the stuff that you complain about, where it's like, oh, final turn, here's 100 power, right? It's just like, yeah, I drew a bunch of 0/6s. Look at me, I'm so smart. Like, no Jane necessary.
Yeah, it is the kind of deck where you're just like, I have never had a good experience playing against this or with it. Except like the first time you play it, and then it's the coolest thing that's ever happened. You know what I mean? Like the first 10 Mr. Negative games where you get a Mr. Negative off, you are the happiest you'll ever be in your life. And then the rest of them are just you complaining about not drawing Mr. Negative in time.
Yeah. I mean, high voltage, I was a Mr. Negative enjoyer.
Sure.
Obviously there's a lot going on there, a lot different. Mm-hmm. But it was like, oh, I'm the guy now with the 0/6s and 100 power. This is so cool.
So, I actually didn't even play the second high voltage at all. You're the resident high voltage expert on this podcast.
I'm not an expert. I just build truly heinous things
Sure.
and hope to hit 4 energy.
That sounds like the correct, like, does anyone in the audience think that they're doing anything other than that in high voltage?
I have no idea like what decks people were playing consistently.
Mm.
I have no idea what decks were the winningest or whatever. No clue.
It's like people are doing like Gambit combo stuff where it's just like nice investment in the board, idiot. Here's your entire board gone.
Yeah, I tried doing a bunch of that stuff too, but it was also weird where it's like there's only 3 turns, and if you don't have prio,
Mm-hmm.
or if you do have prio, like then it's just super weird and bad. Where it's like, okay, I killed your 2 things, but you just played 6 things. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I saw a lot of complaints where like, I can't believe they banned Eliath. That just made everyone do Gambit stuff. And it's just like, isn't that fine? Like, I feel like Gambit gets so much hate for like a card that doesn't deserve nearly the hate he gets, where people are just like, I fucking hate Gambit. And I know why. Like, it's not like it's impossible to figure out why people hate the RNG card that randomly wins and loses games. Because
Yeah,
you
because
only
they
remember when he
when
beats your ass.
yeah, you
Yeah.
only remember when he sniped you. You don't remember the 10 other times where he just like killed your rock.
He fucking sucked every other time. Yeah, no, it's like, I just think that people like Marvel Snap's community has the lowest tolerance for variance that I've ever seen. Like, and maybe that's a consequence of game design, where this is a game where you play 12 cards in your deck and you draw 9 of them. People have such a low tolerance for variance while not understanding that drawing cards in a random order is variance. And
Yeah,
that is
I
the
mean,
thing that kills me about this community.
some people just never face down a knife juggler. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
it shows.
Like, you know what variance I complain about is not drawing a 2-drop on 2. You know what I mean? That sucks. I have like 4 of those in my deck, and I didn't draw one. That's variance too. But no one ever seems to like talk about that stuff. They always
No,
talk
'cause
about like,
you
oh,
still play the rest of the game.
I got locationed or whatever, you know?
Yeah, you still play the rest of the game if you don't have a 2.
No.
Maybe you are, you know, very highly favored to lose at that point.
Mhm.
But like you still feel like you're playing the game, whereas they gambit, snipe, you're like 1 of 10 or whatever, where it's like, oh, pow, got your 20 power thing, you lose that location and lose the game or what. Like, that's in your face. That's in your face apparent.
There's like a surprising amount of blindness to the actual percentages though. Because a lot of the time when I lose to Gambit, I'll go back and look and it'll be like, oh, yeah, okay, so 3 out of 7 hits were wins for them. All right, I mean, I guess that happens, right? Like, that's like not 50%, but it's not that far off of 50%,
No,
you know? It's
it's
like,
close.
that'll happen, right? Like 3 out of 7 hits for them. It's like, okay, I mean, that happens a pretty decent amount of the time. And I think a lot of people see it hit one thing and they're like, that's the only thing that could have beaten me. And it almost never is the only thing that could have beaten them.
True. I mean, a lot of this goes back to the Iron Patriot convo that we were having
Yeah.
before too, where it's like, oh, I got 0 outered or whatever. It's like, no, there are actually 10 cards that beat you,
It's
but
like a bunch of stuff that beat you there, yeah. But like, this is the magic of card games. And I saw a screenshot from Marvel Rivals, and both players or both teams, every single player had a positive KDA, right? And I looked at that and I was like, that is genius. That is incredible game design, because you've given every single player the ability to say, I did great, but my fucking team fed. And I think that, like, if I were designing a card game, I would probably look at putting more RNG in it. Because I think one of the key ingredients of a card game is the ability to maintain cognitive dissonance in 90% of the player base about how good they actually are.
What you're actually saying is that you need to make some team-based card game.
Yeah. Yeah, what I'm actually saying is we need to do a 6v6 hero shooter where every gun shoots cards instead, and that is how you determine whether or not you win. A series of instanced card game mini games is what combat consists of. That's maybe the worst idea I've ever heard. It's really bad.
I hate team games so much.
Are you a fan of team
So much.
GPs in Magic?
Yes and no.
Sure. For context,
Uh,
GP big tournament, sometimes they do team events for like a big tournament where it's like 3 people on a team, and whoever's team wins the most of those matches goes on to win that round. So you can get carried or you could be the carrier.
yeah, so normally you play best 2 of 3
Mhm.
in 1v1, and this is best 2 of 3 matches. So it, in theory, does a lot to reduce variance and whatnot. It makes me care though, because I don't really give a shit about my personal record.
Right.
And generally, I team with people who also do not give a shit about their personal record. But even if they don't care, and kind of especially if they don't care, because it's like, oh, they're being so chill about it, it makes me care more.
Makes sense. See, I
And
feel
I hate it.
like team events are very funny to me because I feel like all the people that love team events are all the people who have really good teammates. Like everyone who's like, I love team GPs is on a team with like 2 Hall of Famers. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, because
like, I bet you fucking do,
they're just
dude.
getting carried. They're like, oh yeah, I tend to do pretty well in these team GPs. It's like, yeah, you got really good friends.
Yeah, it's like I bet you fucking do. I bet you love it. I bet you're
And they're like, you can talk in them too, so your very strong teammates get to like tell you
they
what to
get to
do
help you with your
potentially, and
situations and like
yeah,
yes, it's like
hold your hand, walk you through it.
world's biggest advantage for people who can make friends. Like it's the
Well,
best.
there were a couple guys that were paying people. It was
Really?
like, yeah, they're like, yo, I'll, give you, I don't know what the number was, but like, let's say 5K or whatever. They really want to play on the pro tour, and they thought that this was like their best shot to get qualified was to pay to like pro tour level players to team with them.
Is that cheating or is that legal?
It's legal as far as I know,
Hmm.
because I don't know, like, certainly don't talk about it, don't bring it up, but
Okay, Gerry, you got to give me my $5,000 back now, okay? Like you gotta. I need my money back if you're gonna talk about this on the podcast.
I'd play a team GP with you. You wouldn't have to pay
I
me
have never
anything.
been to a GP in my life. Probably never will.
Well, they don't exist really.
Yeah,
So
so I definitely never will. Right? They're like a new thing now. What are they now?
Spotlight series.
Really? That's a name. Did you see the
Yeah, I'm going to the SS.
I mean shit, the way
It's not,
America's going right now. Go viral
yeah,
on Twitter, you
the
know?
first one did start early
Yeah,
January
yeah, there
2025.
you
Just
go.
saying.
Yeah, shout out to Iron Patriot, my man.
My heart goes out to you.
Jesus Christ. Uh the team GP thing is super sick to me because it's just I would love it because I am bad, but I have friends who are good. But I realize thinking about this that all of my friends who are good, with all due respect, are either washed or do not give a shit anymore. And so it's like,
That'd be great.
like,
That sounds fun.
yeah, it's just like you'd rock up there with expectations, right? Like, whoa, that's Gerry Thompson, and then like we 5-4.
No one says
Like,
that anymore.
that's
No one says that anymore. I
maybe
drop before round 3 in most
hell yeah,
events. So
brother. Hell yeah, brother. No, but yeah, like
just
I
nap time.
oh man. Is that all? I did collect some customer feedback from our comments. Re Masigno. Turns out I
Oh,
was way the fuck off base. They
yeah, I got
loved
I
you.
got some text messages.
They
I got some
loved you,
text
dude.
messages.
They were like KM. There was one person who was like KM is right. Everyone else was like you are a fucking illiterate moron.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I got roundly owned
All right.
in the court of public
I
opinion.
I did not check the comments this week. I am
Mhm.
now incentivized to check the comments.
I got crushed. It was not close. This was the Anthony Davis Luka Doncic trade of debates. I got obliterated.
Is that the thing that happened today?
Yeah. It says
I saw people just being like, "What is the trade?"
yeah. Okay. Let me try to come up with an analogy you'd understand. It's like, okay, who is currently like a top 5 character in Genshin Impact? Just give me a top 5 character.
Malvika.
Okay,
Sure.
it's like trading that person for Diluc.
They're both pyro, so
I don't even like. It's like the
yeah.
reason I picked Diluc because I was just like, he's probably washed by now, right? Like just massively
Oh,
outclassed. Yeah, but he
oh
was really
yeah.
good, right? Like that. That was the trade basically.
Why?
Literally, nobody knows. Like it is an incredible story in the NBA because it is, as far as I'm aware, the most lopsided trade of all time. Arguably the worst trade of all time. The only trade I can think of that is arguably worse was when the Portland Trailblazers picked Moses Malone in the ABA dispersal draft and then shipped him out to keep Maurice Lucas on their team. But Moses Malone was like 23 at the time, right? Like he was really good, but there was no indicator that he would be 3-time NBA MVP Moses Malone. Like 23 is different than 25, having gone to the finals, all of that stuff, right? Like the resume
Yeah.
that Luka has is so completely untouchable that this is the kind of player that I can't think of a time where this kind of player is even on the market. And then for him to not actually have been on the market, they only took offers from one team, and it was the Los Angeles fucking Lakers. And nobody at all had any clue, and every other team would have bid more, but they did the deal with the Lakers for nothing, for no reason at all.
It sounds super sus.
It is super sus. And additionally, my favorite part of the whole trade is that it involved a third team, the Utah Jazz, for literally no reason. Like they got involved just to like grab some second round picks and a player who is not amazing. Like just there was basically no reason for them to be involved at all. But the GM of the Jazz is like a crackhead for second rounders. He loves second round picks, and he just got involved to get some second round picks. And not at one point was he like, what if I made a better offer for Luka Doncic? Didn't come up. Was just like, I'm going to take my seconds and get out of here.
This is like me. Like my whole thing with poker is I don't even want to make a hand. I just want to turn a flush draw. I don't care what happens after that.
Like, it is kind of like that, where it's just like Danny Ainge is out here, like, getting involved in the biggest possible deal in NBA history, not to land either of the All-Stars in the trade, but just to, like, snipe some second round picks that he's almost certainly going to use to draft some European with the 45th pick in the draft, stash them in Europe for 2 years, and never bring them over. Like it's just such an incredible like wheeler dealer performance there, where it's just like that everyone's talking about the big important stuff in the trade, but that stuff, grinding value, that's what we live for. That's the grinder
Okay.
move here. We don't win anything, but we get like a tiny bit of incremental value. I live for that. Shout out Danny Ainge.
I just had to look up who Chad Muska was based on a comment
Yeah,
from last week's episode.
can you tell
I
me?
still I still don't get it. He's a 47-year-old alleged skateboarder. Maybe musician.
It's
I don't
because I
know.
was talking about like the size of the pants I'm wearing now. Skateboarding pants are like big as shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've got like some big ass Carhartt pants, you know?
And then a comment about why don't I stream Snap?
Yeah.
Um, I can make a living out of it. Well, first of all, I'm already making a living. How many jobs do you want me to have?
Yeah, like really when you think about this podcast, it kind of exists mostly as a favor to me, you know? Like it's not like it's also not like work in the same way streaming would be. Cuz,
No.
theoretically you enjoy talking to me, but not necessarily to Twitch chat.
Yeah. And I mean, I could probably stream gameplay with no chat and just not talk, like how Cedric used to stream.
Did he actually
But
do that? That's hilarious.
he did that all the time. It was just like
Why?
him grinding, blasting music, singing, never says anything about what's going on in the game. And he would have 30 to 50 people watching him. So it's just like, why does Cedric only have 30 people? And it's like, because that's the product you're getting.
That rocks so hard. That's the sickest shit I've ever heard. Just be
he was like, this is what I would be doing anyways. I'll just turn the camera on.
Yeah, no, I'll just do this shit for free. I don't give a fuck. I'm not going anywhere with this. I'm just going to take this is the second round picks. It's not like, oh, I'm not going to get involved for anything in particular here. This is the grinder move. I'm just going to get the free value. I'm not going to try to be a streamer. I'm going to get the free value. Give me my second round picks.
Yeah. Anyway, so streaming is hard, man. Like I kind of give you crap for some of the stuff that I don't know, like you're talking about getting frustrated by like losing A cubes or whatever, right? Or when someone comes in after you played each other, maybe you won, maybe they won. It's hard to say, really. Say?
I mean, well, the thing is,
it's about 50-50.
They know, whether, and we'll learn. We'll know who won the game because of them coming into the chat.
It happened one time. I saw one time where the person who lost came in and was like, hey, cool, GG's. And you're like, what?
We may not know who won, but we're going to find out.
But yeah, things like that. Like those frustrate you, right? It's I don't even get frustrated to that degree. It's very draining. And it is very hard for me to hit the start streaming button and be online. And even now I'm medicated in ways that would assist that and make it easier. But when I was streaming the first time, it was because I had talked to my partner at the time and it was like came to the conclusion like, you hate your job, you should quit. And then I needed extra income as a result of that, right? So that is why I was streaming. And that was what allowed me to hit that start streaming button. But I'm not destitute. I don't need to be grinding it out to 30 people like Cedric or, 300 like you. It's just like, it's
2
fine.
Second round picks, baby. I feel like Cedric is actually the exact person who would understand this analogy. Like,
no, he was probably the first person I saw today just being like, bro, trade.
Yeah,
oh yeah, he pulled over. He pulled over on the side of the road and was like texting people for 20 minutes. That's
basically what happened in my chat. It was entirely talking about Luka and the Lakers for just like an hour. Like that's just what happened. I just stopped the stream and we talked about the trade for like an hour. Like that's exactly what happened here. Like I didn't pull over because I don't leave my house, which point to me. But like
you were already parked.
Yeah. I pulled the stream over. Like I definitely did that. I also think it's probably worth mentioning that I once tried to do an NBA podcast back when I was a bigger fan. I'm definitely not qualified to do that now. But like I used to be like a really plugged in fan with delusions of grandeur. You know what I mean? And so like that's the kind of thing where it's like I used to have like real takes. Now my takes are like all at a remove, you know? Like I have pretty good basketball takes, but they're like legacy takes that I remember more so than like fully formed and informed takes on the game as it is now, because I just watch a lot less because I have a lot less time.
So if you wanted to do like a nostalgia podcast where you go through like the 2012 season or whatever, like you could do that.
I watched so much basketball in 2014 and 2015 because that was like right after I graduated from college and I had absolutely fucking nothing going on and nothing going for me. I watched so many games of the Boston Celtics with Evan Turner. I watched so much dog shit basketball. Like I watched an unbelievable amount. And the Portland Trails Blazers got Evan Turner later. I have a vivid memory of an Evan Turner buzzer-beating 3 against the Clippers when he was on the Blazers. And I remember this quote. It wasn't associated with that game, but he shot like 15% from 3. And someone like asked him like, "Hey man, why do you keep shooting threes if you shoot 15% from 3?" And he was like, "Look, yeah, it's 15%, but it's a big 15%." And it's like, it's so incredibly insightful. What an incredible man.
What does that mean?
I mean, if I had to break it down, I think he was joking. But in the real world, I think you could argue that as long as people are guarding him from 3, like he is a threat to shoot from 3, that stretches the floor and allows other players to actually do that. And in order to keep the defense honest, he has to take some. There is a real justification there. It's not necessarily
for sure.
One.
I get that. Like he should definitely not be the dude who never shoots threes.
Yes.
Right. But given that context, my assumption, I guess, was that it was still probably higher than it should be. Like he was still doing it more often. But
that is correct. He is probably my favorite bad basketball player just on quotes alone. Where I'm probably the only guy who remembers a lot of Evan Turner quotes because it's just an insane thing to remember. But like he has a great one where he goes, like, I'm forgetting the exact setup, but it starts with like this humility thing where it's like, I don't want to be weird about this, but right. And then he goes, Jesus was hated too. I love him so much. Like they're like everyone. I feel like everyone who gets really into basketball has like their favorite, like just very mid role player that they love for no reason. That was Evan Turner for me.
Well, I mean, if you're just saying like unhinged things, like,
well, like here's the thing.
Then that's a reason. It's like you have personality.
It was always tongue in cheek. Like he knew what he was saying was about to be really stupid, so he couched it. And then he just said it anyway. Instead of being like, I shouldn't say that, he was like,
yeah.
It's just like,
no, it's genuinely funny.
It's
right?
So funny.
So I appreciate that. That's personality, though. That's like, okay, I can appreciate this guy. I can relate to him. Maybe, you know, those things are great. Instead of just being like, you know, most Magic professionals, it's just like you don't have a lot of personality, or you choose not to show it at the very least.
I think there's something in the way in which you end up being, you know, a 2 second round picks guy, where like you're just like so focused on this incremental value that it not necessarily takes over your personality, but like you have to be on. And on the subject of that, like we talk about streaming being draining, we talk about having to be on. I am on the most amount of stimulants of my entire life when I stream. Like my caffeine consumption has skyrocketed dramatically. I'm taking ridiculous pre-workout stuff. I'm taking Excedrin, which is basically like extra strength Tylenol, but it also has caffeine in it. Like I am fully fueled at this point by just an unhealthy amount of caffeine. And then people are like, Cam, why do you sweat so much? And it's like, well, I can't actually blame the caffeine for that. I'm just fat. But it helps in terms of sweating a lot. Like that's definitely a thing that it does.
Well, you're also like you're sitting in front of lights. Like I don't know.
I've got lights up there and a heating pad back here. So it's actually like kind of a setup for like that's just how it has to happen. But still, like it takes a pretty decent amount for me to like get up for this stuff. And it's my job. And I take plenty of days off too.
Bro, no one ever in the history of the world said Missigno.
Come on, man. I exist. This is me erasure. Me and that one other guy.
Clearly, it's at least one person.
It's at least one person. Clearly. You got any more dunks on me you want to get off?
I mean, I'm still scrolling. There's a lot of stuff. So
Just like,
we might have to take it offline. Maybe I'll send you some fun Discord messages
oh,
or something.
great. I love that. All right. On that note, it's gonna be time to end. Thank you so much for sticking around for what I'm guessing, because I can't tab out still, is about 30 minutes of yap after we finish talking about the cards. I don't actually know. But thank you so much for sticking around through that. As always, I've been KMBest. He's been with Gerry Thompson, and we will see you in the next one.